Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, it's been a surprisingly crazy week in the world of Diablo 4. The announcement and patch notes dropping for 1.4.3, the mid-season update for Season 4, which will actually be hitting next week, but arguably even more importantly, we had the announcement of a brand new PTR that will be running ahead of Season 5, as well as the date of a stream next Friday, June 21st, going over it all in much more detail, which we will of course be covering on the channel as well. And we also get a bit further confirmation on a couple of things regarding the seasons and the expansion release timing for the game as well, so let's just break it all down. First things first, the PTR. This is important because there was a PTR ahead of Season 4's release by just over a month, and having played that PTR a considerable amount myself, they did make quite a few changes, a lot of good changes between that version and what ended up going live as Season 4, and the devs themselves agree that this was quite good for them. After this PTR period, when asked though, the developers did specifically say that they are open to having more PTRs in the future, but do not plan to do it every season by any means, only when there are larger and more important overall game-affecting change-ups being made, such as we had with Season 4. That said, even just knowing that there will be a PTR for Season 5, based on that information that they said to us previously, tells us that it will have a larger scope as far as general game changes, and they also specifically did say that they wanted to release the mid-season patch before the PTR, because the PTR would have the patch changes too, and they wanted them to feel actually distinguishable. That said, to me that implied two more important things. The new season will have a fair amount of changing going on even outside of the seasonal mechanic, which hopefully will be a bit more engaging this time than we had with Call of the Wolves in Season 4, but also it does imply that parts of what the mid-season patch have been tackling will directly overlap with some changes happening in Season 5, as that would explain being worried about that overlap being a little bit confusing. Perhaps some of the new equipment for Season 5 interacts in weird ways with the general class balance changes that we got in the middle of the season, or maybe they'll just be further implementing on those balance changes in general, something along those lines. Past that then, we did have some more concrete information in an article from Windows Central, specifically denoting that Season 6 will start on the same day as the expansion release date. We had a vague idea that might be happening, we knew that they'd be happening around the same time, but this is the most direct confirmation of it you could possibly have, which does also imply that Season 5 will in fact be shorter than expected, as we thought would probably be the case. The same quote that this was from, interestingly, also points out that they are still adding on more modes and things like that, which is a very specific kind of wording that I appreciate seeing, as it means that even aside from the co-op endgame activity we know will be coming with the Vessel of Hatred expansion, we will still be getting more endgame activities to play the game in different ways along the way, hopefully including some greater expansions to this in Season 5. Then aside from that, it's worth quickly touching on a little bonus client patch that may have gone a little bit unnoticed this week. Mostly this was just to fix a bug that caused some players to be unable to access all of their mounts. This was generally quite minor in the grand scope of things, a big picture, and it was fixed quite quickly, so it's not really a big deal and it's good now. Finally then, let's just talk about the general community response and reception to the mid-season patch notes that we did have revealed yesterday. There was quite a bit worth talking about, but how did the people actually feel? Well, there was a lot of good, undeniably so. I think most of us agree. The vast majority of the patch was buffs to things that did need buffs, but even so, there were three major complaints that I've seen coming up a lot over the last day. The first of which is the lack of any sort of new content or items like the Malignant Rings that we got in Season 2, but you could argue that is mostly because the patch itself contains a ton of actual balance changes to make up for that on a more basic level. But that then brings us to the second complaint, which is that the balance is simply not, well, balanced between classes. Barbarian got a ton of buffs, including some to things that really didn't need it, like Flay, which was a massive part of a build already clearing tier 142 and above pit runs, whereas Sorcerer got some relatively minor buffs and buffs to things that barely matter at all, like the way that they did Ice Armor. Essentially, how you feel about the patch notes will mostly depend on what class you play, because if you are a rogue or a druid, you're being treated quite well here, you're probably quite happy. If you're a barb, you're content. If you're a necromancer, you're probably pretty indifferent on the whole, but sorcerers seem quite unhappy with just how little attention that they've received here in this balanced way, with the given, the issues that have been persisting with that class just sort of the whole season. And the third of these complaints is quite simply, why didn't they do anything to change tempering? People have a lot of complaints about the fact that you can just brick items through tempering. There's a lot of nuance to that discussion that we'll be talking about honestly later today in a full video, but the fact that they didn't address it in the slightest either means that they aren't planning on changing it, or that they're planning on changing it in a much greater way come Season 5, and we might learn quite a bit more about that in the coming week. And that just about does it for today then, everyone. A roundup of everything happening in the last few days in Diablo 4, from expansion and season-based information to the announcement of a PTR for Season 5, and everything else in between. Again, the stream about the PTR happening this coming Friday, June 21st. I hope you've enjoyed this video then, and let us know your own thoughts down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.